Good morning, fellow Plexers. This is the next video in a little Unraid series I'm putting together for Plex Server. Now, what I did in the first video is I took a old Dell Micro Optiplex, a tiny computer that had a older i5 7500 CPU in it, a 7th gen CPU, and added one 500 gigabyte NVMe drive and 1 terabyte rusty laptop hard drive in it, and spun up Unraid on that to then show how to install the Plex container. Well, my next step was to slide new hardware under that install. So I have an HP 9th Gen Pro Desk. It's a smaller computer, but not as tiny as the micro form factor Dell Optiplex. And that had one NVMe slot in it, and it also had 3 SATA ports. So I got some power adapters, and I've now added 2 additional drives. I swapped the original NVMe and laptop rusty hard drive and threw it in this, plugged it into my monitor, added the other drives. One of them is a SATA SSD, and the other drive is a full-size 1 terabyte hard drive. I threw it into this system, plugged the flash drive in, configured the BIOS for the system to boot off the flash drive, turned off secure boot, and the system immediately booted up into Unraid, started my previous array, and started the Plex Docker container. Now, the only thing that is different is my old shortcut to the previous boot won't work because the new device has a new local IP address. So the 93 is the last digit changed to the 86. So if you had a shortcut to your Unraid server, that's not going to work. And also, let me get into my settings of Plex Server. I haven't looked at this yet, but let's see if the server's up. The server is up, but I've lost remote access because I had previously forwarded the port for the old IP address of the old hardware. So Plex did start up, but I'll have to fix the port forwarding issue in my router settings to gain remote access again. So really, that's just a small problem. But I want to show how to add another drive to the cache pool and to add a, what does Unraid call it? A parity drive. I've never done any of this before. I've been using Unraid for about a year on a NUC, but only as a Docker host where there is no storage like I have on this system. So I just want to show that Unraid is very portable. If your hardware dies, as long as your flash drive is still good and your drives that are in the system, you can slide new hardware under an Unraid install, and that makes it easy to start with Unraid to test down on a system, and then to keep that existing install as you slide better hardware under it. So what I have to do first of all is stop the array. But I do want to note that this booted up with Plex Server running with the new hardware, which was really cool. Okay, so with the array stopped, I'm not sure if I did it in the previous video, but I have since installed the unassigned devices plugin, which show my 2 new drives here. But if I go to main, now that the array stopped, I can simply click here and assign the new rusty hard drive as parity. And if I drop down to my pool devices, I can change the slots to 2 and then add in the other 500 gigabyte SSD. Now, so if I go all the way bottom to the main, the array operation heading shows a stopped array replacement disk installed, and I'm just going to hit start and see what happens. Again, I've never done this before, and my theory with doing videos cold is if I run into problems, I'll have to figure out how to solve them while I'm recording, or pause the video and then come back and show how I'm going to solve an issue. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just see. Well, I've got some smart health errors on both drives, and unfortunately I don't have any other drives to test with, so we're just going to see what happens. And because I don't know how long this will take, I will pause the video and come back when it's finished to see what's going on. Alright, the screen just refreshed and it looks like this now, but it's still working. And I don't know what this change really means. But I'll pause again until the screen does something else. So, oh, there's a parity sync in progress. Alright, I'll get back when there's more of an update. Well, that was quick. As soon as I paused the video, this is what I ended up with. So I have this triangle that says parity is invalid, click to spin down. But it looks like I successfully added the cache pool, and let's check here. My Plex container started, and if I refresh the web app, I'm still offline, but the container just started, so that may not be okay. So I just had to give the container time to spin up fully for Plex server to be available. So this was a successful test, or successful in adding the extra drive to the cache, but I don't know what's going on with parity. Click to spin down. So let me stop the array again. My install of Unraid on the, oh, I guess that spin down did do it. My cache pool has an error too. Well, I'm betting that if I had new drives instead of pulling old drives out of the drawer, that I wouldn't be having this issue. So I think this video is still worth it. Oh, there's still a parity sync going on. Well, you know what? I won't post this video. I'll wait until that's over. And the only other SSD I have available is a 1 terabyte. I'll let this parity sync finish, come back and see what happens, and then I'll pull the new used 500 gigabyte SSD out and replace it with the 1 terabyte to see if I can add a larger drive to an existing 500 gigabyte cache pool. So I can acknowledge that. But even with a smart error on the new cache drive added to the pool, it looks like I can access everything. So I'm probably not starting this experiment off right using old drives. The NVMe was fairly new, running Unraid, and then the SATA 500 gigabyte drive was a Western Digital Blue that really wasn't too old. That was only used for a short time in whatever project I was doing it in. Alright, so I will I will end this video and then film another one when the parity stuff is done, wherever that information was. It's at 11.4%. I'll start a new video and then just join it to this one. Thanks for watching so far. And I'm back with the Unraid test. So I set a timer to go off about 5 minutes before the estimated time for the parity disk to finish processing. And of course it was finished before I could get back. So I have a green dot for parity, I have a green dot for disk, I have green dots for the old cache drive and the new one. And let's look around to see if we have any errors. So parity is now valid. I'm not seeing any smart errors, but I did acknowledge a couple. So before I finish the video, I'm going to run a smart test on the parity drive to see what happens, and I'll pause while I'm waiting for the results. But I want to get back to the main point of this. You can install Unraid on almost any computer to learn how to use it, to get it configured with only one SSD drive and only one storage drive. You don't have to move all your Plex media to it to start playing with Unraid. If you like what you see, you can then buy better hardware and not have to start fresh with Unraid. You can slide your new hardware under the flash drive and just move your drives over to it. So maybe if you're testing on old hardware, you might want to make sure you get an SSD that you can use in the new system, or a single hard drive that will work for you. But Unraid is very portable. It's like the Docker container of the operating systems. It boots off a flash drive. It just reports the new hardware. If you watch my video that shows the initial install of the Plex container, you'll see it's a different motherboard and a different processor. And let me see, I haven't even talked about system memory. I have got, looks like 16 gigabytes of memory in here. 2 8 gigabyte sticks. So it's just a very portable setup. And now, in my year's experience, I haven't had one of my cache drives fail, but you saw how easy it was to add another cache drive. I assume it's as easy to swap one out. If Unraid notifies me that one of these is bad or failing, well, my Plex server stays up. The Docker container just keeps running. So then you shut Unraid down, you swap out the old SSD, pop in the new one that's the same size. You start Unraid back up, and if it's set to automatically start your array, you'll have to stop the array just like this. So I'm watching down here for notice that the array has stopped. Okay, now the array stopped. You go back to main and you swap in the other cache drive and you start the array again. Unraid will handle everything. And this is a RAID 1 configuration for the cache pool. And I'm showing you right now, you can use different interfaces. One's an NVMe and one's a SATA drive. They don't have to both be the same, which is the beauty of all this. This is why I didn't recreate a Plex server on better hardware under Ubuntu or Windows. It's just stupidly easy almost and no one needs to worry about it. There's lots of Unraid support out there. So we were going to do a smart test before I end the video of the parity drive. So we'll wait for the array to start back up, and again I'm watching down at the bottom. Okay, the array has started, and again I'm not an expert with Unraid. I am with my Plex Docker container without any storage, so I'm just kind of fumbling through this myself. So I'm going to find the parity drive. That's not what I want. Okay, so click in where it says parity, and then self-test, and I'm going to start the short test. All right, so it's at 10%. I will come back when it finishes. Okay, we're at 80% complete. Let's have some dead air together as we wait for this to finish. 90%. I can hear the ice cubes rattling in my iced tea. Completed without any error. So if we go back to main, it just looks good. So again, I'm not an expert on all things Unraid. I know a lot about how to get some Docker containers set up to point back to my Synology NAS, or now to set up with storage on Unraid. If I come up with a test system that has a modern processor and more than 3 SATA ports, maybe I'll throw this USB under, or new hardware under the USB. But this trial key expires in 22 days, and I'm not going to buy a key just for a test install. I've got my one Unraid server, and that's enough for me. It opened off screen. And this is a little Plex rocket ship running on this processor in the little 11th gen NUC with 32 gigs of memory. And as I mentioned in the first video, half of that RAM is used for transcoding. So thanks for watching, and don't be afraid to try Unraid. It's pretty nice.